In order to boost replayability, a roguelike must have unique characters or interesting mechanics. Let's take Dead Estate as an example. We have the default character Jeff with moderate health and a pistol. We have Jules with low health and a shotgun. We have Mamba, the glass cannon character, extremely low health but a very powerful weapon. And we have Isaac as the default, Cain as Jules, and Judas as Mamba. But in Isaac, they largely play the same. Evade enemies, use your active item, maybe open a chest or two without any keys, and although they are still replayable enough, they don't offer anything unique in the terms of game and can get stale quick, especially compared to the tainted characters. Even the least different tainted character, in the form of tainted Azazel, can sneeze at enemies and deal much higher damage with his brimstone attack. But the switch between the stale normal characters and the diverse tainted characters had to happen somewhere. What I'm going to argue in the second part of this series is why Lilith was the switch, what hinders her enjoyment, and how repentance improved her. Surprise, surprise, Lilith is a biblical character. What a shocker. Although all information was unclear about where Lilith came from and what her exact story was, but from what I could gather, her story begins with God creating two people from clay, Adam and Lilith. She was Adam's first wife before Eve appeared from Adam's rib. What the fuck? Lilith, however, wasn't happy with Adam. She refused to be subservient to him and left Eden. She was eventually found mingling with demons at the shores of the Red Sea by 3 angels and gave her God's warning that 100 of her demon babies will die if she will not come back. She still refused. Lilith became the wife of Lucifer and is sometimes depicted as the snake that gave Eve the forbidden fruit. How is Lilith depicted in Isaac? As a mother with a child that might have eaten her eyes. Phew, and a 5-year-old envisions himself like that? Fuck. Lilith sides with box of friends, Cambion conception, incubus and a blindfold. She can't shoot tears on her own, but through her incubus, which deals 100% of Lilith's damage. Instead of the usual 75 with other characters, Box of Friends doubles your familiars for 1 room, which means that theoretically, it should double the DPS of your familiars. And finally, Cambion Conception grants you a demon familiar after taking damage 15 times for the first 2 and 30 times for the last 2. This also includes self-damage through blood banks and demon beggars. One of the major downsides of Lilith is, well, she's fucking blind, and shooting with her incubus can be troublesome for some players. For example, the enemies might be faster than the incubus, it is also less accurate than any other character, and sometimes room designs are just shit for the incubus to work properly. There was a Reddit post during the Afterbirth era all about how Lilith is a chore to use and to complete. It's inaccurate for repentance and sometimes inaccurate even then, but I still want to debate it. The author of this post argues that Lilith, quote, has a huge disadvantage with a minimal, very situational item that is supposed to make up for it. The Box of Friends was apparently weaker in Afterbirth because of how familiars duplicated. If you have Incubus, Brother Bobby and Seraphim, the copies would spawn original 3 in the exact order, i.e. Incubus in the 1st and 4th position, etc. That means, quote, their shots are not going in the same place and makes her a, quote, spray and pray character. Plus there was a nerf to the item, upping the room charge from 2 rooms to 4 rooms. The author also alleges that Cambion Conception was a very situational item because you needed to get hit in order to get a familiar, and you wouldn't get hit that often during a run, and that it only happened to him once. Now, there are some things wrong with this post, even for Afterbirth. With Box of Friends, yes, the order of the familiars can get messed up, but also it still doesn't matter too much. It might take a bit longer to position, but the difference is minimal. And the author of the post forgets to disclose that self-damage also counts for Cambion conception and frames it as only damage from enemies counts, which is greatly misleading. But there are some points that the author points out that were actually a problem. A ton of items didn't work because Lilith was blindfolded. For example, Technology 2, Mic'd, and Tractor Beam. It only applied the stat increases or decreases, sometimes a good thing, but mostly annoying. And the change in Box of Friends from a 2-room charge to a 4-room might have been a bit extreme, although a necessary nerf, but everything ultimately amounts to is Lilith's decreased accuracy, sloppiness in her shooting, and several items that are not working properly because Lilith was blindfolded. So as usual, Repentance changed a lot of items and characters to be more useful and balanced. Box of Friends is now a 3-room charge, and most items I listed were coded to work with Incubus, alongside other items that didn't work properly. It also changed how familiars duplicated. It now duplicated familiars next to originals, so the Incubus will be on the first and second position. So what is actually good about Lilith? With Box of Friends you spread out your shots and hit the target multiple times, reaching a higher DPS. And with more familiars you have, the more damage you deal to enemies, and with Box of Friends. With 2 incubi, synergies are actually stronger than before, since you're doubling the shots, killing bosses quicker. And all familiars enhancers apply to the Incubus, including Forgotten Lullaby, Baby Bender, and BFFs. This allows Lilith to double her damage and fire rate of the Incubus, which is extremely powerful, because, you know, who doesn't want more power? Pacifist liberal cocks? Yeah, fuck them. But in order to understand why Lilith was a Revolution character design, roll credits! We need to get into a time machine and teleport back to 2014 to the good old days of Rebirth. As I already explained, Rebirth characters usually had the same style of firing. You shoot from your face. Sometimes there were items that changed this up a bit, like charging before you could shoot, like with Azazel's Brimstone or with Cursed Eye. But you still shoot from your face, and there wasn't anything wrong with that. It kept the player in control by having a good accuracy, but Lilith turned this concept on its head and forced the players to change the way that they play. Her Incubus was a different way to take a look at the shooting mechanic and turn it into something more challenging. But in exchange, you can double your familiars and increase your DPS and get familiar enhancements such as Baby Bender, Forgotten Lullaby, and BFFs, alongside Incubus, which copies all of the character's passive items. Let's look at other characters that are different from the basic shooting mechanic or they greatly enhance it, starting with Tainted Forgotten. The solo took the hood from this salty bitch and carries the bones and attacks with them. This thing deals 3 times the player's damage and the impact of the whole party deals 5. The body is the only way that the player can deal damage. Then there's Tainted Lilith, which is an obvious example, so I'll cover it quickly. You slap the enemies with a fucking fetus that you shoot out of your stomach, and it deals 2 times your damage. And the fetus also shoots out tears for you, because again, Tainted Lilith is fucking blind. And I know I will be bringing up this character again, but Tainted Jacob has a very strong but punishing attacking ability of Dark Esau. It spices up the gameplay in a really interesting way, and all other characters also have a unique mechanic that enhances the gameplay experience. Tainted Isaac's 8 item limit, Tainted Kane's crafting, and Tainted Apollyon's locusts. And I don't think the devs would experiment with the mechanics of the characters without Lilith. Experimentation is important in order to innovate and prosper in anything really. Technology, video games, and ways of running a government. If you didn't catch the obvious allegory to the French Revolution in this video, You're genuinely fucking dumb. Lilith is a unique character that has her disadvantages, but also her strengths. And I would argue that the way she shoots is a breath of fresh air that was missing in Rebirth. And her existence inspired other characters to introduce unique mechanics that shake up the formula. But Apollyon wasn't one of them.